Welcome back to the Get Your Life Back Online Summit. I'm Beth Genley, your host, and I am delighted to welcome today Adrianne Gunn. As a breakthrough specialist, baggage assassin, and edutainer, Adrianne Gunn is obsessed with finding ways to playfully inspire people to get more life out of their life. So you get your life back and then you get even more life. This is really cool. She helps entrepreneurs, artists, and creatives quickly break through and remove the barriers to their fullest expression in their personal, professional, and creative lives. So that's the short version of the bio, but I also want to say, I've known you for a while, Adrianne. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. I'm really excited and glad to be here.
Excellent.
Thrilled to be invited.
I have to start. What the heck is a breakthrough specialist and baggage assassin?
Right? Oh no. Adrianne Gunn with the guns in the air. Yeah. Fair question, right?
Okay.
So many people have their different paths to how they learn their tools. I learned my tools because I needed it in my life. So I am trained in hypnosis. I'm trained in what's called Neuro-Linguistic programming, which some people have some sense of what hypnosis means. Basically, I'm trained in modalities that help people get massive results quickly. And I like to geek out when I'm at a networking event or meeting someone new. I like to say that I am trained in like ninja Jedi skills that help people really shift a lot of things that people don't know are shiftable. Essentially figuring out when people have those like life-altering moments, like a car accident or like a disease diagnosis or something like that, that shifts rapidly who they are. Like, how does that work? So I'm trained in the strategies of allowing people to make those kinds of changes without having to nearly die.
It sounds like a good plan.
Right?
And I'll tell you what, burnout sometimes feels like you are dying slowly over a long period of time. So this is, yeah, good.
Fair. Did that cover it? Does that help? Baggage assassin is just fun because my last name is Gunn. And a lot of what happens when people work with me is they actually release old stuck stories, patterns, emotions that were getting in the way of their results. And so it's just like, baggage assassin. Ooh, mysterious. That's what I was going for.
I love it. Okay, beautiful.
Thanks.
So what I'm getting out of what you're saying is that the more life that you're offering when you work with people is about not carrying around so much stuff. So
right.
You have energy to put into what you want to put it into. Is that a way to say that?
I love it. Well, yeah, I think in the approach that I have for like what burnout actually is, we're talking about like having to put less effort and get better results. You know, burnout in my experience is putting in more energy than you're getting back, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the mindset of people who are trained in the kooky weird stuff I'm trained in, and my own mindset before I learned these tools was, how can I get more? And it's possible that I was a little lazy or maybe efficient. I'm not sure. But how can I get more without having to, with the least amount of effort possible? How can I be creative and get more out of life? Kind of an opportunistic sort of mentality of what's the quickest, fastest way to get the stuff I want? Does that cover? Does that make sense?
I think a lot of us have goals that are similar to that.
Right? How can I get my beverage to float to me from across the room so I don't have to get up? Isn't that generally the goals a lot of people have? Sound like that? That's a metaphor. It's not as though I'm spending 20 minutes a day trying to float glasses across the room, but
I'm glad to hear it, actually. Okay, but getting just a little bit more earthbound.
Sure. Fair. Yeah, well, so essentially the perspective, when someone comes to me and they're either on their way towards burning out or they've done it. Like I've burned out quite a few times. And that shows up in my world as like illness or just like numbness or like losing motivation. And like literally I've had many weird illnesses, balance conditions, adrenal fatigue, all sorts of things that don't test. Like the blood, nothing comes out in the tests, but I can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Those kinds of stuff. And for me, the process was figuring out how I could spend more time focusing on where I could restore energy and build energy and recharge, where I could stop putting effort so that, like, where were the leaks? Where was I wasting time? Where have I been putting in more effort and getting no result, right? And then figuring out when I do decide to do something, like how to show up and how to utilize all of my strengths so that I'm getting more of what I want. And that's when people come to me, I love more to get people to stop doing those things that are wasting energy and leaking, and maybe they're not so great at, that don't come naturally, and have them build on the strengths that are probably the things that are actually getting them the results in the first place.
Okay, so I want you to unpack that a little more. And before you do, I just want to tell you one of my favorite things to say.
Yeah.
When the going gets tough, the tough recharge.
Nice.
So I'm right with you on that one.
Yeah. When the going gets tough, the tough stops for a moment, takes a deep breath, grabs some water, stretches, takes a nap, and then decides whether they want to keep going.
There you go. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yours is better. Mine's just slower and maybe slightly more specific.
More specific, which is always good. Okay. So keep unpacking. I like this.
So energy, recharging energy, what is actually restful? And it's going to be different for everyone. What charges someone up is different. I had to learn from adrenal fatigue. Most of my patterns were, I know what recharges me. Run really, really fast and hard, lift all the things, to be busy. Like my pattern at the time in my life when I had adrenal fatigue was to do everything at full out, and I remember talking to a therapist who asked me, like, what do you do to relax? And I said, sometimes I find myself staring at the wall for a long time, and I didn't know I was doing it. She's like, that's not relaxing. So I had to actually learn what things were recharging, but also were not destructive, especially at this point of like adrenal fatigue, because there are activities one could do that actually make your condition worse. Mm-hmm. So I had to relearn things like, here's the deal: breathing deeply, hydrating fully, taking naps, getting full rest, going, like, walks are exercise, it turns out. Walking and stretching became what I was able to do. And hilariously, at that time, because none of that activity broke my system down and put it into like, I'm freaking out mode, it meant that each and every day, 20 minutes at a time of walking, 20 minutes at a time of stretching, I was just building and building on the energy that I'd had the day before. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious that there are really simple things, but there's also, for everybody, there are different ways of doing it. I also needed to begin to look at like where I was wasting time and energy, where it was hard for me to show up, where it felt like I was like had a death grip and trying to force things forward, and I hated that feeling. But on the upside, figuring out where in my life things were just easy. I almost just only had to wink or gesture towards something, and then magic would happen. Tons of energy would flow in, or I would get the results. And so one of the things that I do, like for instance, my quit smoking clients, one of the first things I have them do is to slow down their life and reassign a part of their brain a new job. And I think most people, when I bring this up, they're going to know what part of the brain this is. Like the critical faculty is what we call it in the industry, but it's kind of that like judger that a lot of people have running in the background all of the time. Or it's a hypercritical faculty, I suppose. But a lot of people have this voice in their head that's like, man, you're wasting time. That's stupid. Da, da, da. And it's like, it's saying yes and no to a bunch of stuff. If you reassign that part of your brain the job, of being very, very curious and becoming a noticer. This is like, it's going to sound ridiculously easy, maybe for some people, but give that part of you a job. It's really good at like quickly assessing situations. If you give that part of you the job of being very, very curious and just making lists, just noticing like where are things easy? Where are things challenging? What activity brings you energy and joy? Who, when you're spending time with them, it's like a list of like, what brings you more joy and energy? What seems to deplete joy and energy? And not doing anything about it yet. Like even just for like a week or two, just have that brain, like, I know you want to judge me, but like, you've got this other job now. Just make a list of all of these things. And for me, the list was simple. It's like, when I was driving to my chiropractor in the suburbs, the sky would open up and I would just feel excited. And I would be driving over 50 miles an hour. These small lists of things. If I had a certain kind of tea, these small moments, just collecting these moments and lists of these are the things that actually bring me joy. Here are the relationships that I have that are kind of challenging and I can't see, like just make a list for a while and just get a picture of kind of like, I don't know, do you have a Prius or do you drive a Prius? Have you been in one?
I do, yes.
There's a couple screens that show you when you're running on gas and when you're running on electric. Sometimes it's stressful, but that idea of like, which activities build up your green stacked cars in your life and which activities make you have to utilize gas, right? Because there's a way that Prius is all like charging its own self. And so I sort of assigned a part of my brain the job to notice those sort of things, take a list. And I'm going to stop there because that's like a big job.
It's a big job. My brain went off for a minute to think, actually, she's trying to make us burn less carbon. And I had to kind of retrieve myself from that.
Yes. It's not the most renewable, right?
Right. So what I love in there is hearing about, first of all, reassigning the judger to do another job that it's good at. That is a beautiful thing. That is an awesome idea, because if you just say you're not allowed to judge me anymore, it'll go, yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Right. Yes.
What I do. Right. But if you say, thanks for judging, but I want you to do this now. Right. That part in me is the part that's trying to get me to do more stuff.
Right. Yeah.
As a job of what stuff should I be doing there? That sounds good.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about that judging mind, it's highly trained. All of our most of our schooling, I know that we have different forms of schooling and people from other countries and such, but a lot of our schooling is like taking the red pen, editing. In my musician world, we have a lot of description of like, we've got the creative brain, we've got the editor brain, and there's a point in which you want the editor, they're really good at it. And what tends to happen is the judger gets really, really nitpicky because they feel important. They've been given a really important job, but they tend to be working on things that aren't that useful. Like the judger, like trying to figure out how to write an email. The judger's not actually good at that. It's just good at like, you have to write an email. What's the part of you that's really great at actually doing the stuff is the one that's more connected to the body, the ones that more connected to your motivation. The judger's more of like a navigator. Yes, no, go here, go there. But they're really good at evaluating things and making lists, right? So if you get them to make a list of all of the joyful things that you love in life, they're like, oh, I get to make a list? And then they're like, and they organize it and they're like, I made a list, boom. It's like, it's really important because we're going to have more health and vitality. And even though the judger seems very judgy and critical, it's because they actually also think that giving you tons of things to do is the way to more joy and vitality and energy. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, I know, last time that I yelled at you, this one time we got energy, so I'm going to just keep yelling, right? But if you give it the task of like taking down all of the times when you're wasting energy, all of the times when you're building energy, because it's really important for you to know that, to I think it's funny. You were saying your judger wants you to be busy, and there's a wisdom in there, because isn't there this saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person? And we assume that must mean it's because they have so many things to do. They're just really good at doing lots of things. But essentially, busy people are great at what they do because they give themselves very little time to do the things they do. Mm-hmm. And eventually, once you get a sense of, here's the things that bring me joy, here's the things I'm really good at, here's the things that are challenging, here's the things I'm not so good at, and actually stop doing the things that waste your energy, even just for a while.
Well, I want to stop you for a second, because my brain is getting really full, and,
sure.
and I have to back up again, because Perfect. You said the thing about I yelled at you once, and that gave you a lot of energy. So let's yell at you a lot. A lot of people, I know I was one, use that as a source of energy. I have to make myself. I have to yell at myself. And I keep thinking of that sign you see, the floggings will continue until morale improves. Have you heard that one?
I have. I love it. Yeah.
So, but it's a big temptation, because when you get frustrated, when you get, well, that didn't work, or that's not working, or I'm not getting the results I want, whatever, I must be bad, right? And so the detail that I want is how you shift that. How do you let go of that and say, that's not your job anymore. Your job is to make lists of the great stuff.
Sure. Well, essentially I'm thinking I have 8 ways to approach this, so I'm going to narrow it down.
Yeah, give us 1 or 2.
But there's a sense of like, who the heck are we, really? Where there's a body, there's an animal aspect, there's a body and animal aspect of who we are. And then there's this vast, deep resource that is our unconscious minds, all of the things we've ever learned, all of our memories, all of the processes that we do that are unconscious, that we've learned them so we don't have to think of them consciously. There's a lot of creativity and intuition there. That's where all the changes and behavioral shifts happen in the unconscious level of the brain. Then there's your conscious mind. And that critical faculty is sort of in between your conscious and unconscious as a director. And our culture has made that aspect of ourselves really, really important. Our rational mind, our like linear thinking brain, right? And it's actually not as good at doing the things as our unconscious mind in our body. Mm-hmm. And yet it's just super highly trained in our culture. So yes, it can be challenging. Now, when you talk about like the floggings will continue, I was just watching a Western on Netflix where there was a person who was kicking the horse and abusing the horse. And the problem with yelling and fueling yourself on stress is that it works. It does. It works for a while. Fueling yourself on stress and punishment can get change to happen, but it's not a regenerative thing. It turns out that it's actually 6 times more effective to use pleasure and joy, but very few of us have been trained to do that, have taught ourselves how to do that, because we've be quiet, stop wiggling. That's where we come from, is it, be quiet, stop wiggling kind of society. And that is supposedly good for us. So it makes sense that it would be challenging for somebody to shift out of a pattern of intense deadlines, giant lists, because it's what we've come to know. The good news is the moment that you shift that part of your brain, here, we need to use better fuel. And even if we go back to this carbon energy, like eventually people will catch on to that it's better to use better energy that regenerates. It's easier, right? It just means you have to begin to practice, first of all, noticing where that energy is in your patterns and systems, knowing that drinking tea, this is my world, drinking tea but smelling it and tasting it fully having a tinier piece of chocolate, but actually tasting every moment, breathing deeply, noticing when I'm clenching parts of my body when I don't need to be. Like, do I need to be clenching my rear end to chop vegetables? Turns out, no. Should I be holding my breath just because I turned on the blender? Oops, not necessary, right? Slowing down, giving that critical faculty, because it's highly fast. It can notice all of the things that are costing you energy. And then what happens is the more that you begin to shift where you're getting your fuel from, it gets really, really easy and fun to be a person. That animal body just has more joy. And it's like, oh, I know, not only will I get to do more things that I love, I'll actually be able to feel them and enjoy them because I don't have tension or barriers, and I don't have a collision of thoughts like flogging me, breaking me down, telling me how terrible I am. All I have now are more instances where I have more joy, more happiness, more connection, because that's where I'm putting my time and noticing more of it, and it just begins to build upon itself. Whereas that negative, judgy energy mostly makes people want to sleep more, drink more coffee, and it just slows the system down over time. Mm-hmm. And stops, like literally stops working. Your body will just shut down.
So I feel like I want to talk to you about this for like the rest of the day or longer, but we're kind of running to the end of our time.
Okay.
And I know that your free gift that you're offering kind of takes it to the next step in terms of managing energy and what you do with energy as you free it up. So tell us about that, please.
Sure. So essentially the path is, once you have a list of the kinds of things that bring you more energy and the kinds of things that deplete it, and you begin to prioritize spending more of your time on those energy-filling activities and only doing the things that you're great at already that are easy to you, there's a way that you can then, like, how do you utilize the energy you have? You build up your resources of energy, and how do you use it? Well, when it's working well, when your life is working well, there's this state you get into where you're like, I can write this email, boom, shoot it off. Oh, I did the thing, I cleaned my house. And there's a state that they either call the getting in the zone, or a state that they call being in flow. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have a sense that it's this like magical place that just sort of happens to you. Maybe you just drank the right combination of green tea at the right time of day, or you like hugged someone you loved, or you saw a puppy and a baby, and then woo, you just got it. But it turns out that there are ways to get yourself into that state. Now, some simple ways are like, if you have a favorite song, you can, before you do the things, you're like, here's the thing I'm deciding I'm going to spend my time doing today. Before you do that, it makes sense to get into a good state so that you can do it quickly, right? So there's songs, there's music is good for people. Some people like bounce up and down or take a quick walk outside, fresh water, and then do the thing. Part of, another thing people can do is just like visualize how great it'll feel to get it done and what it feels like to and then do the thing. Instead of dragging yourself to an activity, get into a happy, joyful place first, because then it's easy. And when those things don't work, the gift that I have is, it's called the flow state. And it's a very, very simple visual exercise that allows you to get into the kind of state that athletes, musicians, performers get into when they're high scoring games. I've heard that NASCAR drivers, if they're not in this state, they're in the wall. So it turns out that there's a very, very easy visual exercise where you expand your vision out of foveal, direct vision, to more peripheral vision. And it allows you to connect to more of your creativity, your intuition, your senses. Your body gets into a more resourceful state. This is how speed readers, they utilize this state. The Hawaiians call it hakalau. Some people may already know about this. So I have a video training helping people figure out how to get into this state. This is also the state for people that jump on stage to give speeches. When they're great at it, they get into this state. It allows you, once you know how to get there quickly, it means that short amount of time that you've given yourself to actually do the things, it means that you can do it quickly. It means that you can do it effortlessly, and you might even just like at the end of it, like giggle at how great it was and how joyful it felt. I hope that makes some sense. It's like a quick path to that place you've been in on some road trip where you're on the highway and everybody's like letting you pass at the perfect time, or that place you've been in where, you like start painting your house and then suddenly it's done, but you didn't remember time passing, and suddenly you haven't eaten, but you feel amazing. How to get into that state more often.
That sounds like a really beautiful thing. I'm really looking forward to checking it out. Adrianne, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation, and I just found myself grinning through the whole thing. So.
Oh, good. Well, I hope, I had the sense that I was a little bit fire hosing people with ideas, and I hope it makes sense that when you spend more time on things that bring you joy, and you prioritize that, all of your other tasks are going to be a lot easier.
Hear, hear. All right. Great way to go out. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth.